Hello everyone, let's have a short introduction on Lab 5. This is a photo of one of the desks I took in the lab. So here you need voltage source, which is this one. We have two three phases. This is constant three phase. This is variable three phase. We use the variable one, phase A, phase B, phase C, and this is neutral. So you need to use this three-phase AC voltage, and you need to have DC voltage as well. We have two DC voltages. This one is constant, you don't use it, and this one is variable. So you need to use this DC voltage. And for both AC and DC, we use this for increase and decrease it. And of course, we turn it on and off here, and you shouldn't do that. Then we have a dynamometer here. It has a switch. You should turn it on and off here. It must be on dynamometer. You should turn on and off here, not that here, at that point. Then it will be connected to the app. So you should first turn this on, then the app on. Otherwise, you cannot see it in the app and the app doesn't work. Then you can change when you turn this on, you see this monitor on, and you can do some changes that you will see in the lab instruction, but most of them are not required because it is connected to the computer and you can do everything in the computer. Then this is the induction machine. So this induction machine, I will explain it in details for experiment one. Let's just go ahead. This is your inverter, and you know how to measure voltage and current here, and this is for measuring the signals, and you will see again in the lab. And this is the control section of inverter, and you will see in the first part of the lab. So experiment one, it says connect the stator of the wound rotary induction machine in Y. So you should wire up this circuit. This is the rotor, this is the stator. So this is our induction machine. This part of the rotor is connected. So you need to connect these three together to make Y connection. Then for the stator, you need to connect these three ports together to make this Y connection. And don't forget, this must be you shouldn't connect this to anywhere else. Just connect these three together, that's it. You shouldn't bring this back to, and don't do that. Then you should connect the other side of stator, this to three phase ABC. So you should connect 1 2 3 to this three phase, but don't forget, before that, you should measure the current and voltage. So that means for phase A, this must first goes to ampere meter, then bring it here. And you saw it in the first, in the lab 3, how to do it. Then you should measure this voltage, VAB, means the voltage between line to line between these two, and the phase voltage as well, phase A to ground to neutral. That is the connection. Then set the dynamometer module to dynamometer mode. So you should set it here, that switch you will see in the lab. Then this one, you can do it on the app, manual control. When you connect it to the computer, this would change to computer control. Turn the load, so then we will explain how to slowly increase the voltage, and after a specific level the induction machine start turning. Then you will increase the voltage until this value, and you should put the torque on the minimum, then turn it on, turn on the torque. So at the minimum, the torque would be something like 0.2, between 0.2 and 0.3. Then what you need to do is filling two tables. At the first one, you increase torque in these steps, point 1. For example, the first one, let's say it starts with 0.3. Then you should write down speed of the motor. You can see it in the app. Then IS, current of the phase A, and VAB, or line to line voltage. Then you should calculate S later on at home. This is sleep, and you should know how to calculate it. Then you increase torque from, let's say, increase it in these steps and fill out all these this table until your IS, the current, reaches something smaller than this. You shouldn't go beyond this value. So for the next part, you should repeat this again, but with 50% of the supply voltage, which is 100. So you should decrease the voltage to 100. Before that, you should put the torque on 0. You should bring the torque to minimum, and then decrease the voltage to 100 volt. Then again, you should increase the torque, but not with this increment, because you cannot go too much, so you need more points. So here for this table, it's better to increase the torque with the 0.05. So half of this. The steps must be half, should be. It's better to be half of this to have more points, because in this one you reaches the maximum currents sooner. Then you should follow the lab instruction how to make the curves and how to discuss the results. At the next part, it's introduction to IGBT inverter. This is our inverter. So the IGBT will be used in inverter mode. You can put it here on inverter mode. It says use the 9-pin connector to connect the IGBT to inverter control unit. That is this cable. You should connect this cable to this control unit. This is the control unit of this inverter. And this is 9-pin. You will see in most of the tables, this is not connected. You should do it. Then terminals 1 and 2 of the IGBT inverter are the DC. This is 1 and 2. This must be connected to DC. This is DC voltage. And terminal 1 and 2, the variable voltage supply. Of course, the first one is variable. So this is for experiment 3. Terminal 3, 4, and 5 are the three-phase voltage. So yeah, these 3, 4, and 5 are three-phase voltage, and for the experiment 3, you should connect it to this 1, 2, and 3 to a stator, but not for this one. Then anytime you turn on this DC, or did you decrease it, some voltage remain in this capacitor, and it requires some time to dump. So it says use the dumping circuit to discharge the DC capacitor voltage before powering up the circuit each time. So you will see in the app that this voltage slowly goes down, and you can use this switch to, but this switch, we tested, it doesn't work. If you turn it on and off, there would be no difference. We will tell you in the class how to discharge this voltage sooner. In this section, to have a better view, I just showed the inverter control unit and data acquisition and control interface. So you can see the whole setup in the past part of the video, but this part is just specifically for this section. It says set mode to 180 three-phase. So you can first turn this on, which turn the inverter control unit on. Then you can, using select mode, put it on 180 or whatever. Here we need 180, and as you can see it says three-phase. Then it says connect control input 1 to output of DC source 1. Control input 1. What is control input 1? This is control input. This is 1. 2. Output DC. DC source 1. This is DC source 1. This is output of DC source 1. You should connect this to this. Then it says connect the signal ground. What is signal ground? It is small white pin. This is signal ground to the signal ground of the data acquisition interface. This signal ground to the signal ground of data acquisition. You can easily find it because you already measure voltage and current. So this part is beside it. So you should connect this white one to here. Then connect DC source 1 output to the analog input of the data acquisition interface. So DC, connect DC source 1, DC source 1. This one, you should connect this one to here, this point. So just let me explain what you are doing. You are changing, because this is connected to your inverter. Okay, you want to change the frequency of your inverter or the switching frequency. By changing the switching frequency, you can produce any frequency that you want for your induction machine. So here, this is the control unit of your inverter. You can easily change this voltage, and by changing this voltage you can change the frequency, output frequency of your inverter. But we want to see this voltage in our app, so that's why we connect this control unit to you connect it to this data acquisition or measurement tools, whatever. Then in the app you can see it by this name. So you remember that we have E1 and I1 for measuring voltage and current. So for this one shows as A1. You can see here analog 1. Then you can see it if you put it on, let's say 5 volt. You can change the voltage here using this. When you change this, you can see the voltage changing under the name of A1 in the app. If you put it on 5 volt, the output frequency of the inverter that you measure it here will be this, around this value. So what you should do for this lab, you should connect the DC that I showed it before, the DC variable voltage, to the point 1 and 2 of the inverter. Then you should build this circuit like this, which is already built. Then you should measure the line to line voltage, let's say E1 or E2, whatever, between 3 and 4 using VAB, and between 3 and ground. So these two are, this one is phase voltage, this one is line to line voltage. You should measure these two, and when you change this voltage, how? Using this. When you change this voltage, that means you change the switching frequency of your inverter. That means your output frequency would change, and you can see in the app. Then you can easily follow the instruction here, what you are required to do. And yeah, it's here, it says you should do these. Then let's do experiment 3, which in experiment 3 you keep this circuit and you should connect 3, 4, and 5, 3, 4, and 5 to the stator of your induction machine. Then you should keep the circuit of experiment 2 and continue experiment 3. So what you should do for experiment 3, you should connect this DC voltage to the inverter. You already connect the inverter to control unit, and this number 1 to output, and output here, and ground to ground. You already did it and you should keep it. Then you should connect the output of inverter 3-phase to your input of stator of your induction machine. You in the first experiment you got this voltage from directly from voltage source, but now you should have it from the inverter. Then, like the first part, you should short this the output of stator and rotor in Y connection, and this one shouldn't be connected to anything else. It must be just, you should just connect the 3 together, that's it, and this 3 as well. Then you need to measure 3 values. This DC voltage that you connected to um, inverter, the line-to-line voltage, let's say VAB, this one, and you need this DC voltage that you connected to AI, because you need it for switching. Then you should read this instruction, it's not difficult. Then it says adjust the DC supply voltage to the IGBT inverter until the line-to-line voltage output of the inverter VAB is 100 volt RMS. So what you need to do, you need to increase this voltage, the DC voltage, until the output of this inverter, which is connected to stator of your machine, reaches 100 volt RMS, and you should measure this using E1, E2, or whatever. And when you measure this one, the DC one, in the app you should put it on DC, and when you measure AC one, you should put it on AC. Don't forget this. Then you don't need these kind of things because you already did it, and when you connect it to computer, this would change. You cannot do it manually. Then it says, what is the input DC supply voltage to the IGBT inverter? So when you increase this until, or this DC until this voltage reaches 100, then you should measure this as well. And the question here is that what is the input DC supply to the IGBT inverter? Then next part is set the DC source 1. DC source 1 is this. Output to obtain 60 Hertz at the inverter output. So in the app, in the section for the inverter, you can see the frequency. When you put this on 5 volt, that you can see it in AI in the app, when you put it on 5 volt, the frequency of switching would be something like 63, more or less. Then it says, the question says, change this voltage using this to obtain 60 Hertz. You should increase it or decrease it until the frequency reaches 60 Hertz. And this 60 Hertz is not constant. It's going slowly up and down. That's fine. Then increase the mechanical load, means torque. So then you should turn on the torque in the app. We will let you know to do it. And increase in steps of 0 point, not this step, you should increase it in 0.05, not this one, because you need more number of points for this section. Then you should fill out this table. And yes, I didn't explain that when you bring this voltage, when you connect this three-phase voltage to stator of your induction machine, you should first connect it to the ampere meter, then bring it here. Don't forget that, because you need IS as well. Then compare the obtained slip torque curve. Yeah, you should do these later on. You should completely answer this part and then the next part.